What's going on, everybody? It's Davey from the 80s, and you are now entering the Cinema Chop Shop, so park your ass right there. While you're there, don't forget to hit the like, the share, the subscribe button. Also, if you check the link below, you'll see a Patreon account. If you click it, you can become a member. All you got to do is try to recommend movies and music and trailers for me to react to, so click the link. Now, with that being said, we're here today to review Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Now, quick synopsis of the movie. This movie is directed, obviously, by Ryan Coogler, and let's just get into the nitty gritty. This movie is basically following a conflict between the Wakandans and the used to be Atlanteans. I forgot what the name of their empire is now, which is led by Namor, who is played by Tanash, who I remember from freaking Forever Purge as a guy that says, "Does this translate?" That's who I know him as. But surprisingly, dude's been getting a whole lot of play in Hollywood now. I mean, being in Wakanda Forever, one of the biggest Marvel projects this year. I mean, that's a really good look. And honestly, he did a pretty good job, but we're going to get to that in a minute. Basically, this movie, obviously, with the death of Chadwick Boseman, we have to have some sort of conflict surrounded around his death. And this leads us into a conflict between not only Wakanda but the rest of the world, and then also I cannot remember the new name they came up for the Atlanteans, but it's like based on the Mayans and Aztec lore of the underworld. So let's go ahead and get into it. As a movie, like just as a movie, it's pretty fun. Like it's a good movie. The script is well done. It's a whole lot of culture that's represented in this movie, and it's done very well, in my opinion. The African culture that's highlighted in the first movie obviously carries over to this one, and then also we have the blend of the Mesoamerican, Latin American whole cultural aspect with the Aztecs and Mayans, and I thought that was a really cool touch. Now, a lot of people hated on it because they're like, Namor is like Greek or something like that, or he's not Hispanic. But honestly, like to me, Namor was never a huge factor enough to the point where it's like his race really mattered. Like I don't know, understand why everybody was making a big deal about Namor. It's not like Namor is like this huge name in Marvel, and people are going to say, "Well, he was the first hero. He was the first mutant," and I get that, but at the same time, like, chill out. Is just Namor. Like it's not. It's not. I don't see it as a big deal. Um, but Tenoch did play a very good villain in this movie. And this is one thing that I will say Black Panther as a franchise, they have going for them. They have casted really good people to play villains, and they picked their villains really well. Now, here's the problem I have. Um, I don't want to give away too much, so I'm going to be speaking in code. Okay. The new Black Panther. The new Black Panther, the person that takes the mantle, which I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but the new person that takes the mantle of Black Panther, it didn't really feel like it was needed. When you're watching this movie, there's a conflict in it, and they come to a way to end the conflict. And when you really think about it in retrospect, you're like, well, you kind of didn't even need the power of the Panther to do this, because technically you kind of already won without any of the gadgets and gadgets, you know? And also, just building off of this idea of plot, I mean, this movie did have some really good character development. The movie is written really well, and it's told really well, in my opinion. But at the same time, like, it really felt like they just kind of, it didn't need to be called Black Panther. There didn't even need to be a Black Panther in this movie, in my opinion. It should have just been Wakanda Forever. Leave it at that. Talk about the lore of Wakanda. Talk about whatever Wakanda's facing, and just go about it as so. And I think it would have been a pretty damn decent movie. Um, Me personally, I understand when you guys see this movie, you understand what I'm talking about, but I didn't really like the way that they went about exiting Chadwick Boseman's Black Panther character. Although it is going to be authentic to a lot of people when you're listening to it and you're hearing it, it is a very authentic way. But at the same time, like when you're looking at it in the realm of the MCU, it doesn't really make sense. You get what I'm saying? Like it didn't, to me, it didn't really correlate. It didn't make sense. I don't understand how that happened. I think that they could have found a better way to They could have found a better way to do that. Like they really should have like had him go out in a blaze of glory, in a blaze of glory instead of the way that it happened. Like it just, I don't know, it just didn't sit well with me. I felt like there was a better way they could have wrote that in. There's a better way they could have executed that. I felt like that was poorly executed. Another thing that was not really done so well in this movie was some of the CGI. Some of the CGI in this movie was very off, especially in the opening scene. Within the first 10 minutes, you're going to see a few bad CGI moments. One in particular, where it's supposed to be a very heartfelt moment, but I couldn't help but notice like how weird and strange and bad the CGI looked. You know, like I think they probably would have been better off like actually physically having the object do what it needed to do versus having it computer generated. But that's just my opinion. Um, we have an introduction of Riri's character, who is Ironheart. If you guys are not familiar with it, I was kind of skeptical at first, but I mean, her character didn't. I thought her character was going to annoy the hell out of me, but it didn't really annoy the hell out of me. Honestly, she did okay. They found a way to like to segue her into the movie. She did all right. She wasn't too bothersome, and you know, she was just there. You know, this is basically just segueing her into getting her own TV show that we already knew that she was going to get any damn way. So they found a nice way to cleverly input her in, get her face kind of familiar with the fans, and so that will make people actually go watch the show because it's easier to go about it that way versus just having people just going raw and just don't know what's going on. Um, Another thing, well, with her design, I'm just going to go back to her design. We already know that Ironheart has a suit in this movie, right? We know that she has a suit. The problem is her suit looks terrible. Okay, not like it looks terrible in a sense of like, you know, like it just looks bad, but it's just to me it could have been designed a little bit better. It seemed like she had like a compartment in her helmet for her cornrows. I didn't get that. I don't know if that was supposed to be like a thing, but you just noticed like these little bridge thingies going across her head. It looked like it was a compartment for her cornrows. Also, the Midnight Angels, I believe that's their name. I don't like the costume design behind that. Kind of reminded me of Predator in a way. But again, like we're all going back to the beginning. The story's a really good story, and Namor is dope as shit in this movie. The problem again is I didn't feel like the person that was supposed to be or is Black Panther didn't feel like Black Panther, didn't command presence like Black Panther, didn't mean shit. Like when it happened, it just was like, okay, all right, cool, you know? And it's crazy because the storyline isn't bad. Even like once the transformation process happens and this whole thing that happens there, and the cameo is amazing, by the way, but that cameo did more damage than good, and I'm gonna explain that in a minute. But once that all happens, I'm like, this is a really good writing, this is a good storyline, but I just don't care for you. Like, I don't care for you enough to be like, yo, this is dope. You deserve this spot. And it sucks because, like, because of Chadwick Boseman's untimely death, we never got like a full series of like Black Panther to the point where we would feel content with like, you know, what the stories that he could have been told, you know, and especially when you're watching this movie, you're like, damn, a, a really strong Black Panther character going up against this version of Namor. Oh, it would have been really good. It would have been really, really good. But instead, we got, you know, somebody else fighting as Namor, and it just didn't feel that good, you know. Even the third act, like the third act really kind of felt all over the place. We're following like three different fights at the same time, and it never felt like we got like this really like we never got like a real sense of conclusion. You know, everything was jumping around. We seeing these three fights go down, and like it just felt like there was no real like conflict, like there was no real tension, like there was no real stress. There was like, even when in a situation where it's like stressful and it's dire and they have their backs against the wall, it doesn't even feel like it, you know. Like you kind of already like hear the whispers in the wind, and you can tell like this is going to end on a good note for them, you know. And like I said, like it didn't feel authentic. Like that third act wasn't really good, but me personally, I didn't really like the third act of the first Black Panther. Maybe it's a Ryan Coogler thing. I don't know. He doesn't know how to do third acts. But again, I wasn't digging. Third act of this movie, it wasn't that good. They didn't even need the Panther in this movie, in my opinion, but that's just me. Um, but there is a dope ass cameo that pops out in this movie. Dope as shit. I lost my shit. And even looking at the cameo, when the cameo happens, you're just like, this is what this movie needs. This movie needs somebody that commands the attention like that. That's the way you do it. That's the way you command attention. That's the way you freaking pull in the audience. Not this. You know what I mean? Like, it just didn't feel good. Like, it just, that cameo that pops up on the screen made me feel like, damn, like, this movie's really lacking. Like, it's missing a lot, you know? Um, but I will say this, like I said, Tenoch is a really good character. The cameo's dope as hell. There's a lot of cool visualizations in this movie. There's a lot of cultural aspects that are like explored and talked about, which was really cool. We got locations. We're jumping around to different locations. That was dope. But and again, I like the writing in the movie. The writing in the movie was good, but go back to square one, you know, like I just really didn't feel like this movie did Chadwick Boseman any like service. Like, there was no real closure with his character. It just was kind of like, well, he gone now, so you know, we're just gonna move on from that. Like, there was no closure. There was no like kind of like, there was no real like, you know, like I don't know, like, it just didn't feel organic. It wasn't well done. Our goodbye to Chadwick Boseman, or their goodbye to Chadwick Boseman, just wasn't done good. Wasn't done good. And we have a we have a post-credit scene that happens in the movie. And honestly, I don't know how to feel about it. Didn't really expect it coming. Didn't really see that coming. When it happens, it's like, okay, where could this lead to? But then you start thinking, and that's fucked up. They low-key kind of played into a stereotype. Like, when you think about it, you're like, damn, dude, they kind of low-key played into a stereotype. That's weird, but okay, you know? And then also you sitting there thinking to yourself, like, okay, where are we going with this? Is this like, this is going to be like the plan 10 years down the line, 8 years down the line, you know? How far down do we go down this rabbit hole before we finally get introduced to this character? Because I know it's not something that's going to be introduced like that, you know? It's something that's going to happen way down the line, you know? Because this character's really not ready to be introduced into this Marvel Cinematic Universe. Not quite yet. Not quite yet. You guys will understand what I'm talking about when you actually see the movie. There's also characters in this movie that really feel like they play no part. They kind of don't belong. You kind of wonder, like, what the hell are you here for? You have this like tension that continuously gets hinted at, but never really kind of develops into anything. If that makes any sense. It's just, I don't know. Like, again, this movie at certain times felt like a mess. But again, I will say the central plot is done pretty well. You know, it's done pretty well. Like, I can't get mad at it. You know, this movie has a lot of female activity in it. And what I mean by that is, like, this movie is really like heavily like female led. There's barely any male characters in this movie. Like, when you're watching it, you notice, like, I thought I was tripping. And so I really thought about it. There's really no male characters in this movie. And the male characters that are in this movie, they have such like minute roles that it's just like easily forgettable. You know, we're literally following Shuri and Midnight Angels and Riri and the Queen of Wakanda, and that's about it. Like, this is what we're following like most of the whole movie. So it's like, and then also Lupita's character as well, which isn't a bad thing. You know, like, it's not a bad thing, but it just becomes very blatantly obvious, especially towards the end. It becomes blatantly obvious towards the end how useless every single fucking male character in this movie is. Every male character in this movie is fucking useless. I mean, useless. There's literally people in this movie holding ropes and doing absolutely no fucking fighting. They're fucking useless. You know what I'm saying? So And I don't know if that's by design. I don't know if that was just because it just so happened to be like that, but that's just what we get. And I'm just like, when I'm watching, I'm like, yo, like, am I tripping or there's like nothing? This is not like, this ain't no man's world. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't know. But overall, like I said, I had fun watching this movie, but I wouldn't have called it a Black Panther movie. I wouldn't have included the Black Panther suit. I wouldn't have included any of the stuff that involved the Black Panther. Um, the only thing that was Black Panther related was again that cameo scene was probably like the only thing where I was like, okay, that needed to happen because that was actually fun. I actually liked that. That was actually good. But I can't say that I hated this movie. Can't say that I liked it. Can't say, but I can say that it's an average movie. Well, when you're looking at it as a Black Panther movie, the fact that it has Black Panther in the title, you like the way that Black Panther's character is done in this movie, it makes the movie average. Now, if this would have just been a Wakanda movie, easily a 9 movie. You know, like it's super enjoyable movie. Love the conflict. And I'm not gonna lie to you, Angela Bassett did a really good job, but I feel like people kind of overhyped her performance. There was a lot of ranting and raving on a lot of the reviews, like from Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb and all of these big name reviewers, and they're just like, Angela Bassett, it's, oh my God, so heartfelt, so warming. Yeah, she kills it. You know? And when I'm watching this movie, she does a really good job. But at the same time, I didn't feel it like that. I didn't feel like her character was like as demanding or as had that presence like they were trying to portray it as. She didn't have that commanding presence as they made it seem like. Everything they made it seem like every time she spoke, like your heart melted. You know what I'm saying? And this is just what I'm saying, but I think that music in the trailer helped it because like when she gave that speech in the trailer and they had the music hitting and shit, man, that shit gave me goosebumps. And it was just like, and I'm sitting there like, damn, this movie about to be filled with all this shit. And when you really think about it, I think if you would have just muted the music and just listen to what she said by itself, it wouldn't have had the amount of power that it did. I think the music was what made you feel, not what she was saying. And throughout this movie, we get a whole lot of her talking. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, damn, she about to say something epic. And she says it, but it don't hit the way I thought it was going to hit. But again, she does a good job. Nothing spectacular. But she's not these people talking about she's going to win an award and all this crazy shit. I wouldn't go that far. She did a good job. She was cool. But it ain't something that's going to, like, drive you home. You know what I'm saying? Again, I enjoyed the movie for what it was. But at the same time, if we're calling this a Black Panther movie, I got to give it this grade. So here on the Cinema Chop Shop, we grade movies in 3 ways. Count them 3 ways. Either get bodied and sent to the bowels of hell, or you get spared and I'll tell you movie's dope, or you get a big fat meh, which means your shit's mas o menos, mediocre, mid-range, mid, all of that good shit. I'm going to have to give this movie a big fat meh.
Not quite my tempo.
Not impressed.
But it can be better.
Mediocre.
Meh.
But the TV gave me the impression that...
We said meh. M-E-H. Meh.
Yeah, you heard it, folks. I'm giving this movie a big fat meh. Because as a Black Panther movie, it's not good. Like, I mean, it's not, I'm not saying like it's not good as in like the movie's fucking trash. I'm saying it's not good as in it wasn't as enjoyable because it didn't conclude the Black Panther arc and made you feel like that was a really good conclusion or that was the next, that this is the next stage or this is the next step. There was no fluid transition. It didn't feel fluid. You know, as a Black Panther movie, didn't like it. If it was just a Wakanda movie, then this shit is like a 9 or an 8. That's all I'm saying. So that's my review. Let me know if you agree or disagree, whatever the case may be. Drop it in the comment section down below. And you are now exiting the Cinema Chop Shop. Hope you guys have a magnificent day. Adios, homies.